the very reason you are free to not agree with gay marriage, the very reason you are free to believe whatever the Bible, whatever your religion tells you to believe, the very reason you are free to preach on Sunday mornings that homosexuality is a sin and that they're all going to hell, and people who wear dresses are going to hell, and guys who put earrings in their ears, all those things that you preach on Sunday morning, the very reason you're free to do that, and the reason no one has stopped you, is because Constitution, right? The Constitution. That's why. And the bad news for you, though, the disappointing news, it's not bad news, it's just disappointing news. The disappointing news for you, though, is that the same liberties and freedoms and space to exist that you get by virtue of the Constitution, that's going to be extended to every other American, every other ideology, every other religion, every other orientation. Everyone is going to be free to live their lives exactly the way they see fit, so long as how we're living is not intruding on the rights of someone else, so long as my religion is not hurting somebody, so long as my sexual orientation is not hurting somebody, right? As long as I'm not taking the liberty and life and freedom of someone else, I'm perfectly free to do whatever the hell I want to do. I'm free to be a Christian. I'm free to be an atheist. I'm free to be straight. I'm free to be gay. That is good news to everybody. And the fact that for so long we've allowed America to be based on Christian values, not by virtue of law, but by virtue of custom, that was an imposition on everyone who did not want to live like that. It was convenient for people like me who grew up Christian, and so it didn't bother me that America was ostensibly a Christian nation, even though it wasn't supposed to be, based on the Constitution. It was convenient for me. And so I understand that you feel like America is attacking. No, hang on. Let me take that back. I don't understand that Christian persecution complex. But I do understand how when someone removes a privilege from you, you feel like you're under attack, right? I do understand that now that everyone is not saying God bless America, or everyone's not saying, whatever religious connotation that you like to hear, because people aren't saying that does not mean that Christianity is under attack. That simply means that the force is coming into balance. Right. The force is coming into balance. It was so swayed in the other direction that Christianity was, even though it wasn't on the books, it was like everyone had to live according to our morals code, even though they didn't want to. And that is not constitutional. That is not even biblical, but I'll leave that for my Sunday show, which I don't do, but maybe I should. That's not constitutional. No one should have to have their rights be predicated on the religious beliefs of someone else. That's number one. All right. So the other reason it's a good thing is because it really is making us have a conversation that we absolutely need to have, is what role does the government actually play in marriage? And what this decision is going to really mean is that the government is going to grant rights to whoever wants to get into a consensual legal marriage. Period. The government has never been able to dictate to religious people what their marriage can be defined as. And that's an entire red herring. People are going around saying, oh, the government is redefining marriage. No. First of all, there has been we've been in bed with the government too long. Preachers have been executing licenses on the behalf of the government, and I would say almost for too long. It is convenient. It is convenient that you can go to your religious institution and get married and have the license taken care of at the same place, right? But when the rubber meets the road, there's a lot of things that churches are in bed with the government over that they really should not be in the bed over, to the detriment of the government, to the detriment of religious institutions, and to the detriment of people who just don't want to live their lives based on your moral code. And I think the decision that's coming down from the Supreme Court is really going to move us to the next step in that. The next step is simply this: no one has the right to dictate what is traditional, normal, or acceptable to anyone else. As long as what they're doing is not breaking a law, is not infringing on the rights of someone else, is not putting the life of children in danger. No one is going to come into your church and tell you what your marriage can be defined as. And likewise, you cannot come out of your church and dictate to John and Jerry what their marriage can be defined as. It's a win-win situation. But you have these preachers who obviously have the flair for the dramatic, who are threatening to burn themselves alive over gay marriage. You know, here's the thing about that. Besides the fact that they would be killing themselves for absolutely nothing, besides the fact that it would almost I'm sorry, I'm a slightly twisted and just a tad bit deranged. That would be kind of funny to me that these preachers are so committed to controlling the lives of people who don't want their lives controlled by them. Because that's what it boils down to. It boils down to religious people trying to force other people not to be able to get secular rights, not religious rights, but secular rights. You know, the right to go visit each other in the hospital, the right to do tax returns together, the right to leave an inheritance to each, those types of things, simple, basic rights. These preachers are so committed to controlling the lives of other people that now that they no longer can, they want to kill themselves. Well, hey, I'll bring the marshmallows. Where's the cookout at? Let's have at it. I think the fact that you are so obsessed with controlling other people's lives that you can't take a step back and realize this. Nobody is taking anything from you. Nobody is changing your religious definition of marriage. You will not have to perform a gay wedding if you do not believe in gay marriage. You are free to live your life exactly the way you lived it before this law came down, before this ruling comes down. The only difference is that now you don't have the right to impose your moral values and your religious code on someone who does not want to live that way. And I think any rational, reasonable person sees that as that's the way it should have always been. We should never have had a time in America, but it is what it was. There was a time where the only thing that was acceptable in our culture, and by virtue of being acceptable in our culture, it trickled into our legal system. The only thing that was acceptable at one time were things that were based on Christian values. That is no longer the case. And I think that's a good thing, not only for people who don't want to live their lives as Christians, but it's also a good thing for those who do want to live their lives for Christians, because that tells us that, you know what, everyone live and let live. Can I make it simple? Live and let live. I'm not going to bother you. You don't bother me. I'm not going to question your faith. You don't question my faith. And then we can all just go on about our business and enjoy the freedoms that you ostensibly love in the Constitution. But I was talking to my barber and he was like, and he's a religious guy. He's a religious guy. And he actually said it much more eloquently than I could, and this is going to be a religious perspective on it. And I think it's reasonable. He said, you know what? He said, I live my life the way I live my life, but the Bible tells me to render unto Caesar what is Caesar. So he says that I have a responsibility to live my life the way that the Bible tells me to. And part of that says that we are subject to this government, and that there are going to be things that the government says that we need to acknowledge and recognize and honor. And if it simply says that we need to get out of the way of people who want to have a gay marriage and same-sex couples, then that is one of our duties. It is one of our duties to say, okay, this is what the government says is law. And so we have to abide by that law. Very simple concept, but apparently it's too complex and nuanced for these preachers.